You too. Nice to meet you.
All right, we should be recording. So, Debbie, whenever you're ready to share, we are excited to hear.
Okay, well, great. And thank you, Kelly and Penny, for having me today. And I'm really excited to be part of this team in STEAM and particularly talking about the A. The A is the way, in the arts. So visual and performing arts um, as part of the thinking and the projects. My name is Debbie Yarrow. I am Arts Education Manager at Creative Sonoma. Creative Sonoma is Sonoma County's arts agency. So we are a division of the county's Economic Development Collaborative or department and work to support the creative community in a variety of ways. We support through grants. We support with professional development, convenings, communications. We work on public art projects and special projects like arts education. Arts education matters for students. It's a required part of our education code, and the more arts, the better, is my viewpoint. And that viewpoint comes from I grew up in the Midwest. I knew that I wanted to be a teacher early on in elementary school, and then I started playing the saxophone. And I was bitten by the music bug and played saxophone all through high school. I went on specifically to become a music educator because it's great to have to play and feel the adrenaline rush of applause, and it's even better for me when it's my students receiving that adrenaline and that applause and those lifelong skills. And so I was particularly around middle school age, it was my specialty. I love middle schoolers. I've taught preschool through university age, so I've seen all the things, um, or maybe not. But I have had my teaching credential in 4 different states, which is also interesting because different environments, different just expectations and foundations. That credential included California as well. And I've been at Creative Sonoma for 8 years. And yeah, just really, really excited to be part of this conversation around the arts. And, as a musician, initially, it was very powerful and still is very powerful to create sound, to create the nuances of sound and be in control of tone and timbre, volume, playing with other people and how your part melds into something else greater than your own, and creating in different styles. And so I think about that in terms of music performance. And then over the years, as I was teaching and working with students, thinking about how music is really time and space and the mathematical proportions that go into music, because music is feeling math. There is science in music in terms of acoustics and pitch. Pitch is defined by cycles per second. So there's so much thought and interesting thought that intersects between music, for example, and again, that's my discipline, and other areas, science and technology, math and engineering. And so more and more, I thought about these connections, and students are ready to talk about this immediately. I think as I became more involved in music, my thoughts expanded. But students right out of the gate, when they are beginning to play music and be musicians, they are ready to have these conversations and interested in these conversations about what is music? What does that mean for the community? How it an identity that I can have? How can it help people? And when I learned about the theme of this year's showcase, wellness, I was particularly excited because there's so much information research and projects in motion around wellness and the arts in general, whether it be dance. And let's broaden it up from my music background to really visual and performing arts, or VAPA, is our acronym. So we're talking about music, dance, theater, visual arts, as well as media arts. And each of these disciplines is part of our education code, required in grades 1 through 12. There are state standards for each discipline and each grade. So there are expectations in terms of standards. Um, we had a new set of art standards come out in 2019, and then there was a supporting work called the California Arts Framework, which we'll get to in 2020. And I was hoping to talk about that a little bit today, just because 2019 and 2020, you all remember we were going through a lot of stuff. We were not paying attention to new art standards and the framework that was supporting them. So I think that there is an opportunity to go back, revisit that, see how that can be integrated into arts lessons. Um, yeah. Let me see if there were anything else. I'm thinking about about STEAM lessons and how do teachers build confidence in developing arts integrated activities, despite perhaps not having any arts experience or background. And I want to assure you that Creative Sonoma, for example, we are happy to be a resource to other artists in the area, to other arts organizations. We have plenty of very, very creative, thoughtful folks who want to be working with students. So there are many connections, and if there are ideas that you have, Creative Sonoma is very happy to make those connections in going forward. But to really think about how to build your confidence in developing arts integrated projects that represent authentically a discipline of art. Um, I think I will start with arts integration and the Padlet, if that's okay, Kelly. I'll just jump in there. All right, because some of this will be covered in that. Um, this Padlet was so much fun to to put together, and I had to uh, slow my horses down because there is so much research and really interesting reading to do around arts integration as well as arts and health. But I would like to take you through particularly some of the top picks in these columns in the Padlet. Being familiar with the Institute for Arts Integration and STEAM, I think is a great place to start. There are resources to give you kind of a quick pathway about some of this. You can, of course, earn a certificate through the Institute. There are also some free lesson ideas, research, a full library, explanations around what is uh, what is true arts integration. Another piece of information is the California County Superintendent's Arts Initiatives. And they have learning modules that include arts integration. They have lots of information, leadership. Here's the leadership model. They do have at least one integrated thing, which is, here we go. So if you click into the modules, there are information handouts to help you as a teacher become more familiar with the language of the arts, because that is, when you're in a specific discipline, that is something to be, you know, thoughtful about. So to say that this creativity at the core from California County Superintendents is a really good place to shop around for some ideas in terms of arts integration. Arts integration is also available through the Kennedy Center. The Kennedy Center has a clearinghouse of a real great variety of information. The link that I provided goes to some articles, around what is arts integration. I love this definition that the Kennedy Center provides. Arts integration is an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through an art form. Students engage in a creative process which connects an art form and another subject area and meets evolving objectives in both. So that's a great place to start, when we're talking about being authentic around arts integration, making sure that the arts are authentically represented. Continuing in this Kennedy Center module, there is a good place. Let's see, if I go to education and resources for educators, browse our resources. I really like this digital resources library that you can click into and browse. Let's see, I've been through a couple of these arts-based lessons. And it has a filter that allows you to select your grades, the subject area, any integration area that you're thinking about, and do a search. So I would recommend, if you're interested in you or your students, checking out the Kennedy Center collection. I think that's a really great resource there. Talking then about moving down the column, I thought that this handout was really great, particularly if you are considering arts integration and particularly around the first time or you're new at this, that there's a lot to consider, and going slowly and asking for some support is really a great idea. To not read this to you, but I think that there's discovery that can happen in this process for not only you, but your students as well. And learning together, I think, is a great place to start. Another handout, evidence of leadership in arts integration instruction. So, thinking about what has to occur during the process. Arts education is about process, not the product. We are considering even our standards are wrapped and woven around processes. We are not necessarily trying to create the next Picasso, but rather arts education promotes critical thinking and problem solving and blah, 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 and all the things, to not go in my soapbox. So I thought that this could be helpful for our educators as well. This link goes directly to that California Arts Education Framework that I mentioned earlier. There is a link for educators to go into, I think slide decks for me are always an interesting kind of fast pass into what are we talking about when we are talking about standards-based arts education. These are some PowerPoints that were developed when the framework first came out to help us really try to incorporate the standards into our lessons. So I'd encourage you to explore some of the standards and the framework that is there to help with that. I included the CDE page around the California standards, and you'll see the 5 areas, 5 disciplines. There are standards for each of those disciplines. not a fun page to look at, but the content is important for sure. And just so you know, that is available to you. This handout is a resource of kind of a smattering of some ideas, including some other links. And this was provided courtesy of the Stanislaus County Office of Education. So again, some links to explore depending on interest. Um, Incorporating a STEAM lab into the program. Visual art materials. I thought this was interesting because if you have not taught visual art, knowing what kind of materials might be useful to have as students are creating their ideas for their projects. So I thought that this handout was good for that. There's a video about setting the context for arts integration and how the arts became part of public education. I'll leave that to watch that YouTube when you have a chance. Arts and SEL, the intersection of SEL components, arts learning as a cyclic process, the components of art standards, and I'll just pull this up quickly. When we're talking about the artistic processes and our art standards, they are based around these areas, including creating, performing, presenting, producing, responding, and connecting. Um, this handout, I think, is particularly interesting when we're talking about kind of buckets of arts education. So arts as curriculum, arts for art's sake or discrete arts teaching. So that is students going to a music classroom and learning musical skills. There is arts enhanced curriculum where students perhaps might sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star to a scientific formula or something to help them remember. And then there's arts integrated curriculum, which combines that intersection of the arts standards as well as other curricular standards. And you can see there's some places, so there's some shifts in this in terms of opportunities to move in and out of this. And this is all valuable. This is all valuable for students. On this handout, to mention, there are some pieces of information. The CDE offered a webinar last week on P through 3 arts integration strategies, and we pulled some ideas, some bullet points, as you're trying to get your head wrapped around including arts in projects, staffing, materials, self-reflection, working with early learners even, and seemed like some really great thoughts around that. I really did want to point this out just real quickly. Creative Sonoma has an arts education directory. These are providers in Sonoma County, arts educators, arts organizations, and teaching artists who are available to schools. And if you're looking for a visual artist, a sculptor, who is also an educator, this is a great resource that can connect you to those folks. And then finally, rounding it out, I'd encourage you to look at Technology Enhanced Arts Learning, TEAL. It's out of the LA County Office of Education. You can earn a certificate through TEAL. Luther Burbank Center for the Arts right here in Santa Rosa offers tremendous PD around arts integration and have a full offering of all kinds of really interesting classes. The Arts Standards Placemat, this came out in 2019. Again, it would help you to understand kind of the buckets of the arts disciplines. And then finally, talking about Prop 28, just to mention this quite briefly, Prop 28 is new funding for arts education. It was passed in 2022. For Sonoma County, we are receiving every year, our school districts are receiving about $10 million every year. Statewide, that's 800 million to $1 billion for new arts programs. This funding can be used for STEAM. So, thinking about all the ways that we can get arts to our students. Um, and just to mention this, your principal would know a lot more about this if you're curious. And then Creative Sonoma has information on our website. And I guess I'll jump into the wellness, Kelly, unless would you like to go through these first few slides, or should I jump into where I added?
Yeah, thanks for that, Debbie. And thank you so much. That has been super helpful for me to be able to really have clarity as I'm exploring and learning with the Padlet as well. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think I would love to keep this time highlighted on your resources and your connections. So yeah, let's keep it connected to wellness and arts integration and some of the things you'd like to lift connected to that.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to jump in with what is neuroarts, and this is based on a book which I have here, Your Brain on Art. I would really encourage anybody who is interested in research around there is wellness, there is learning, there is community health. You'll see lots of tabs that I have here. I thought I knew a lot about arts education and wellness, and then I read this book, which is chock full of ideas and research, and it's fire. So I would really encourage you to check out the book as well as the site. It's got a lot visually going on with it, including it has a aesthetic index test that you can take, your students can take, and it really asks us and challenges us around how we think about the arts. So NeuroArts is, I'd encourage you to go to this unusual kind of site. Arts RX, Dr. Tasha Golden is a researcher who is very much a leader in the field of arts and health. And this particular podcast is talking about issuing prescriptions for arts for wellness. And there are some states and even other countries that are interested in doing this, putting this into motion, really exploring how the arts address loneliness, how they address, I've been reading about dementia and Parkinson's. So really using the arts as a cost-effective non-medicinal way to address wellness issues. So I think this is a really interesting field. Renee Fleming is another name to know. Renee Fleming is known as a very famous opera singer. She also is very committed to arts and health. And this is a series of YouTubes. This happens to be with the former US Surgeon General talking about music and loneliness and isolation. And she has really interesting interviews with guests who are talking about a variety of the arts and the impact on wellness. LA County has literally a week dedicated to arts and wellness, which I think is super cool. I am very interested in what they are doing. I went down there this year. USC had a symposium around arts and health. There's a lot of research coming from USC, and LA offers a wellness week and with different events during the day, which you can kind of explore in this resource. There's the National Organization for Arts and Health, or NOAA. Again, exploring, finding what interests you and or your students around arts and health. Here's a link to USC and their Brain and Creativity Institute that I mentioned earlier. Dr. Habibi is just really focused on the impact of music and learning and wellness. Also, the University of Florida has tremendous research and interesting progress around arts and health. And then finally, the Californians for the Arts are currently putting out a series of webinars, and they are specifically addressing each of the disciplines with practitioners talking about their work and what it means to use arts in health. So this is a drop in the bucket. And again, I had to back off because there's so much really great information and really exciting information. And the idea that we could use something that we already have, thinking about it differently and ensuring that each of us, as a student, as an adult, as a senior citizen, have avail to the benefits of the arts. So with that, Kelly, are there any things that maybe I could clarify or dive into a little bit more?
I think at this point, this has just been an incredible collection of resources and information, and we just really appreciate Debbie you being here, and really appreciate your passion, number one, and your love for the arts and arts integration, and the connection to all of our well-being and wellness in our communities of all ages. So thank you so much for the work and time you've put into putting this together for us, and then being able to share this with your voice and your own words and your own experiences has really been invaluable. So thank you so much for your time. And we'll definitely let you know if folks reach out or have additional questions once we've shared things out more widely. Um,
Fantastic. Thanks for the opportunity, Kelly.
you're welcome. And I'm going to stop the